What did you think about that John McWhorter and Glenn Loury video?
And that was crazy. So I thought it's cool to hear people who are intelligent and who have like a real breadth of experience and exposure to see how things are going on and say like, you know, things aren't as bad as they used to be. That's great. They are saying things aren't as bad as they used to be. And when I hear people say that they're so terrible that we're going back in history and the whole world is being blown up, it's like that's alarmist. That's clearly not happening. It's not happening to me. It's not happening to anybody I know. That's crazy. And so I thought that was a key point, a good point, and a real point. Then they went left and they were like, and got into some weeds and they're like, yeah, the straw man though, like people are out here trying to they talked about the fact that there are so many people who are using identity politics and just general ideologies and the idea of race in general to say black people are special and we should get special
Treatment.
treatment. And I'm like, okay, so that is a take, but that ignores the reason people are talking. I think that's something that I don't believe they're doing it in a disingenuous way. I don't believe they're being malicious. I just think they literally cannot think in that frame of mind. And so it does not occur to them that there could be another point that people are coming from. And so I thought that part was frustrating. So I don't even like I don't have all the information myself because I'm not the use case either. I'm like, I mean, I'm not the one who's actively going through this pain, so I don't know. But when when they're talking about the fact that people say when the Supreme Court rolled back the Civil Rights Voting Act, they're like, this is ruining everything. I'm like, I mean, this was here for a reason. Laws aren't magic and they're not absolute defenses. These are just things people use to help after the fact. So no, no, it's the world isn't on fire, but like the laws were there because things were on fire. Look, it's not that fires don't exist. I think we should definitely take a step back and stop pretending that they don't exist. We can certainly say, where do they exist? How can we make sure they don't happen? Like that was the part I thought that the interview was missing, was that like they did not talk about the fact that there were real problems that needed to be solved in the 60s, but also still exist today. I'm like, racism is real and people are using their power to actively oppress people and create injustice. Injustice. How can we fix that?
But see, I think they spoke about it with more context, and because to me that statement is kind of abstract, and I think when you get into the abstract statement of the problem, it's like there could be a problem there. I haven't named that problem, but there could be a problem there. And that's when I like the gray area to me is where the grifters eat, and also where you introduce fear to people who don't even have these circumstances. So when they spoke about it, they said it specifically like, yeah, back in those times, there were specific issues that we don't even have to name them to the sense that we are aware of those issues that were being dealt with. It wasn't even, we're not talking about people who are going rogue on the system. We're talking about people using the system to effectively disenfranchise people,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so if you eliminate that, then we're talking about just the situation for everybody. Like,
Yeah, which is which is the point. I think that is they are pretending, phrase this, they are not addressing the fact that America has a caste system and that being in the lower caste, no matter where you are, carries with it certain risks, certain liabilities, and actual disenfranchising issues. Had someone brought up the issues in Georgia or in Tennessee or all of all of Mississippi, but like anyway, had they brought up these specific portions of saying like they're actively not allowing people to vote turning people away and then invalidating their voting and when they're trying to do it, and then redistricting the state in a way that is specifically not allowing people to get their basic needs met. I'm like, see, that's wrong. That is why they passed a law, so that when this happens again, we could punish that. But see, now we took the law away and they're just doing the thing anyway, which never really stopped. But like the goal was for it to stop, to happen less. And so I'm just like, we're not addressing the problem. They're not addressing the problem. I think that part, I'm like, we should really address the problem.
I guess I'm in that boat in the sense that I don't see people making I don't see the people who are supposed to make that case making that case specifically. All I hear is bad things are happening. Bad things are happening and people aren't getting opportunities. And then when I hear the people who say, well, what specific thing is happening? Then there's nothing. Then there's nothing being said about it. It's just, no, people aren't getting opportunities over here. And then when I also hear people from those areas, just like that video I shared like either last week or the week before, they're like, they introduced a law that said we're supposed to have ID. I got ID. What are you talking about? What are you talking about that people aren't getting opportunities to vote because they don't have ID? And it becomes the story of the grifters are playing on that whole idea of bad things are happening. Then when you find out all they're asking you for is to have ID, and then if there are some situations that aren't that, the people who are really speaking to that aren't articulating it well. Because all it sounds like is bad things are happening. Oh, they don't have ID. They should be. This is not an issue. You should have ID. It's fine. And then people are like, but no, it's not just ID.
That's not what's really happening, right? Like that's not, if it was just saying, hey, you should have ID, everybody would be fine because 99% of people have ID. The question is when those people who are running the voting booths don't accept your ID because they don't like you, you're like, well, that's not okay. This is the injustice. And I don't mind you saying like, hey, IDs matter. Cool. We all have IDs, literally all of us. So this shouldn't stop anyone from voting. It's like, well, no, these people weren't able to vote this time. Why was that? They didn't have the form of ID they liked. They didn't have the one that was the ID, didn't have the real ID, didn't have the star on it, didn't have the birth certificate, didn't have two forms of ID, didn't have the ID that could have happened here. People have this problem. I say this because like I've had this problem going to voting stuff here in Virginia. And I'm like, it happens enough to where I'm like, if they will question me just because I happen to be different, meaning just because I happen to be in the lower caste in America, then I'm sure it happens to people who don't have resources, who don't have any confidence, who show up like, these people look really angry and I might not make it out of here alive. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and just go back home. They seem less cordial or less supportive of this process.
So I mean, but I hear that, and at the same time, man, this one sound insensitive. I'm like, yo, you gotta get. I can't do anything with that.
Yes, that's
you know. I need specifics. I need exactly what happened in exactly this case, so I can investigate. And then when it comes down to the whole caste system thing, I don't really care. All I care about is what happened. Like the whole idea of caste is irrelevant. The whole idea,
it's power.
But the idea, the caste, but caste doesn't mean shit to me. The actual blocking me from doing what I want. I don't care about the reasons why you may or may not be doing this thing. Mm-hmm. All I care about is it happening? I don't care about why it's happening. I do care about why it's happening, but I'm not caring about whether I think somebody likes me or not. Because the thing is this, if you say you need ID and you're like, well, that person doesn't like my ID, what did the paperwork say? What kind of ID were you supposed to have? And are you in compliance with that paperwork? I'm not interested if you think the people like you or not. I'm interested in, are you in compliance with the law that's on the book or whatever? And now maybe you could say people are playing games with the law. That's a different claim, but then you need to be better or more articulate and specific about that, because I can't help you if you're not specific.
That's true. That's exactly right. You definitely got to be clear. And I think there have been a lot of people who have been. They just haven't been very popular. So it's worth looking into to figure out that clarity in the sense of saying like there were real injustices that happened in Memphis, really injustice that happened in was it Fulton County in Georgia, and people actively either tried to vote and got stopped, the government just stopped it, or they actively were trying to do their thing in Memphis and like were voting for their person, and then they just got randomly redistricted out and just weren't allowed to vote there and weren't told where to vote somewhere else, and their guy wasn't allowed to run or even get voted for. It's like, oh, that's wrong. That's injustice. We've had legit.
But here's the question though: if you get redistricted, that means somebody else got redistricted too.
Yeah.
Right? So that means you're playing by the same rules.
No, completely different rules. If you get redistricted into a place where you're not even 10% of the population, your vote, like the people you just spent your majority of your time talking to, are no longer there. You don't have a base. You don't have a way to actively get elected any longer. And the people who are consistently elected from before no longer have a way to maintain their promises. Like they can't deliver on any of their campaign stuff because they don't have that whole portion there. And if you change it at the last minute, there's no real way to go around that. Anyway, the way that is being done is wrong. And I think that is something we could point out, like, oh, this could be done differently. There was no reason to do it this way. This was clearly making it harder for the people who live in this area to get their needs met. And
I mean, come on, man. Are you trying to tell me that this is a strategy only for one side of politics?
No, this is politics. Okay. All I'm saying is injustice is wrong. And I'm like, when you,
I mean, look, when we I get it.
And like, hey, we should have a law that says injustice is wrong. I'm like, we can have that law. We just need to enforce it. Let's do that.
And I get that, right? But see, here's an issue, and I'm gonna give you an example of something that I came across. It's going to seem like it's not related, but it's related to me. I came up on some video. This was Shannon Sharp, Club Shay Shay, whatever. And it really doesn't matter what the video is. Basically, there's a basketball player that had a story about another basketball player. The names don't really matter. It's a star basketball player. And he's like, this guy's late all the time. This culture at this team is horrible. And basically the star is like an hour late at least every time.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the other teammates came on, and then mind you, this is a regular conversation to me in my mind as I'm receiving it. So yeah, on Club Shay Shay, one of the other teammates came on, was like, his whole conversation was like, it's like, you know what I'm saying, and the shit we fucked up this, something such and such and such, and know I'm saying, F, blank, blank, blank. The whole time we having a conversation online. And he's like, basically what the other guy's saying ain't true. Now, he inarticulate, he's steady cursing, and then like, I don't care about cursing or even being articulate. But the thing about it with me is, my first instinct is, I think I'm gonna believe the other guy, And the reason why I'm believing the other guy, and it doesn't mean that the other guy is right, it just means that I have more belief or trust in the other guy who could actually shape a sentence and be articulate without cursing and saying, nah, I'm saying all day.
Right. Yeah. And himself better.
And what I come to find is that even with like watching police videos, you get people who are saying things that are happening that aren't actually happening, which lowers my confidence in the stories that people have sometimes. And it's impossible for me to know the facts of every single case. And I'm not going to just go into it believing everybody all the time. I'm going to think, what information can you give me to help me understand your case? And if you can't give me any of that, it's hard for me to get behind you and be compassionate sometimes. Whereas though some people will just believe you. It's just like, oh man, this person is disenfranchised, or whatever the word is. I'm not really finding the word right now. But they'll just believe that person just because they think bad things happen to people like this. I'm going to believe their story. And they don't ask them to rate. They don't They don't implement any standards of being not even articulate. Be specific. Say what your problem is. And some people really can't communicate that information to you in a way that there are people who might be going through things, and because they can't be articulate, they can't be specific, they can't make the case, I can't help them. That's one of the issues that I have. I'm not going to keep deferring and saying like, well, this person's going through a hard time. It probably happened to them. I can't do that because first of all, it doesn't require me or require them to rise to a standard of evidence, to a standard of communication. They need to do that because
you have to be clear on your own evidence, because like you keep saying specific, and sometimes people do give you specificity. And so it's helpful just to be like clear on the fact, like people don't have perfect memories. It's not going to give you a perfect play-by-play, but they should be able to articulate their real idea, their real goal, their real obstacle, and like what really happened that they want to fix. That part is true.
okay, that's fair. But at the same time, like, why are the specifics of these cases so difficult to track down?
They don't know their names. They don't know the specific situations of every person they represent. When the representative gets up there and says things, all they can do is tell their story. And so those things are the specifics I think that we could expect.
And I mean, I guess my thing is for someone like John McWhorter and somebody like Glenn Loury, I don't think that they're intentionally just ignoring people. If somebody had a case,
I don't think they're intentionally doing it. I do think they aren't aware of it. And that makes me frustrated because I'm like, it's not that they're not, other people aren't talking. You could have checked that out. You could have looked. You could have seen there's data, there's statistics, there's whole news reports. They could have tried.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's like for me, because you make it seem like this is known information.
It is.
And for me,
I watched it like every day. Like I've seen 3 news stories of this happen in the past 3 weeks. Sorry, in the past week. So when they get on and they're like, yeah, I don't know what these people complain about. Why are they talking about? Like there were riots. There people ended up in the hospital. It was very clear. It wasn't who knows what could happen. These people actively weren't allowed to do the thing. They were literally disenfranchised in front of you on TV. What are you talking about, man?
they weren't allowed to vote because they had the wrong ID. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think the thing was the wrong ID. I think they just showed up to the wrong poll because their polls got switched last second. It was crazy.
And when you say last second, what does that mean?
Oh, I don't know. So I saw a thing in Memphis where they were showing up to vote, and then they were like turned away at the voting station because they had been changed in the past 72 hours. I don't know. And that to me I thought was wrong. I'm like, this didn't have to happen. They had months to get this together. We've known about this election for 2 years. What's going on, guys?
But incompetency exists. That's one thing.
Yes. And it's not all malice. Some of this is really just we did a bad job. I believe they did a bad job.
Right. And so my next question would be, who else is dealing with this situation? Because, and at the end of the day,
And white. I think that part is true.
because here's the thing for me at the end of the day, when you frame it as a race thing, you also are framing it as the Black people are always poor thing.
Yes.
Because this is not really, to me, a race thing as much as it is a people with not a lot of resources thing.
Yes. There we go. That's 100% right. I think that's the part the people in power are framing it as a race thing, and they are the ones who hold the media and the keys and they do all the things and they put this picture out there. But it is just a power dynamic. It is clearly just showing that the people in power are doing a thing that the people without power don't like. And they're like, hey, so here without power, we pass some laws. We finally force people in power to pass these laws, say that when we get, disenfranchised again, we will now have ways to hold people accountable. And then well, we rolled back those laws, so now we're not doing that. I'm like, well, see, that's going to make it harder to hold people accountable. Well, we don't need that anymore because, we don't have those same problems we used to have. We don't have those exact problems, but we have similar problems because, again, the laws weren't a wall. They're just ways to hold people accountable later. And if we don't have that, now now it'll be much harder to hold anyone accountable. But I hear you. It is there are things we could say in a much clearer way that haven't been said.
So this is the issue that I had with that. And I don't know if it's the 15th or the 14th Amendment, but the whole idea of if some of this stuff goes away, because essentially all you needed to do, the document, I wouldn't say I can't say this is a perfect document. It's a great document, like the rights, Constitution. But if you don't recognize people as people, then that's the thing that needs to be fixed. But if you recognize them as people, then we're back to the same document. And I can't, just because the argument that you're giving is the argument that can't be fixed. And so therefore I wouldn't introduce noisy new law to try to fix something that couldn't be fixed in the beginning. You have recourse. Just because I give you a law to secure your recourse, that's infinite. That's like an infinite regressor in a sense, almost like, let me give you a law to secure the law that was already on the books. And actually, why not give you 3, 4, 5 more laws to secure the ones that were before those? When at the end of the day, we're talking about people not enforcing the things that's on the books.
People not enforcing the things on the books. There you go.
Right. So if it's just like policing, like you can have all of the restrictions and the things that you want police to do and not to do, but there are some rogue police officers and it just could go bad. And there's nothing, you can't stop that. You might be able to lower the number of cases. You may even get it to a super low. You can't stop people from going rogue everywhere all the time.
Can't control people. All you can do is put the protections in place.
Good. And then and really the protection, yes, there are protections, but then that's like, I think you understand, it's just secures your avenue of recourse.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like the bad thing is still going to happen because it just nobody can get to you. The bad thing is still going to happen.
Human action or free will. Like people are going to make choices. That's going to happen. But yes, the laws are there for recourse.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. To me, you are robbing. And I'm not saying you specifically, but anybody who takes the art, when anybody takes the position that it's almost like saying black people are too dumb to understand that that's the situation to me. Because you got to understand, you're going to have to get to a point where you understand that. Like, the law is there for your recourse protections and is for recourse. But the law can't change reality and people's decisions. It can't do that. So if they're rogue people, you have to understand how law, like it's to the point where it will make a person lose confidence in law because they never had confidence in law. They didn't understand what the purpose of the law was for. They thought the law changed reality.
They saw it actively not being applied for them. So they're like, hey, this law is the same as not having a law. Like we are saying things, but we are doing another thing. And that is the clear part that I think consistently happens. And I think that is the way they tried to fix that was by passing the law to say like, hey, pay attention to this. This matters. You cannot do these things when you have a blatant, specific call out to do it correctly. And just, I think that has been violated, that is being violated, and is now going to be violated in a much greater degree because that is human nature. Like in this sense, this is the system. We have our express system, and then we have our actual system. And I think our actual system is flawed to the point that people are very upset about how things are, and they're losing faith in this whole process. And it just makes it harder to encourage rule of law and safety when they're like, but the law is not protecting me. It's not being applied justly across all cases. The people in power are just using the law however they want. It's like, yeah. Okay. Well, then I'm not going to follow it then. All right.
But to me, that's a conflation of not really understanding the law to me, because that's not, it doesn't do that. It's all it does is allow you to have a case. That's all it does. It doesn't, it's not changing. There's no stated law versus actual. There's no stated system versus actual system.
There definitely is.
There's
100%.
stated system, and you don't really know what the actual system is. That's just called reality.
Yes.
You don't have any control of that at all.
Oh, you have choices, so you get to have that amount of control, but you don't have the control of the system itself. It's certainly not of reality.
And I wouldn't call it a system. Like that's like, am I going to say just because there may be a high percentage of, well, let's just call it 1990s. If there's a high percentage of black boys who sell drugs, they have a system of drug dealing. Like,
No,
what the hell does that got to do with me?
I wouldn't go that way. No, I would say that, like, if you get caught up in the justice system in the 90s and you happen to be in a city or a place or even a subdivision that has black people selling drugs, and you happen to be a black person, that if you get picked up there, there's a good chance the good judge is going to put you
But
in
what's
jail.
that got to do with me, though, Josh? That's what I'm saying. Like, you taking the other route. I'm saying, like, as a black man, if you're not doing that, why would I want to play into the whole idea of systems that aren't specific?
I mean,
I would.
that's the point.
Nobody can
Because the
categorize me like
injustice is
that.
there. You are going. If you live in that place, you are at risk of having the injustice happen to you.
But that's not a system, though, Josh. That's just circumstance. It's not a system.
There are circumstances, but there's also a system making that circumstance happen and actively perpetuating those same injustices. I think that's something that we all have to agree. Like, hey, this isn't just magic. It didn't just happen out of nowhere. There are incentives to keep this going. They want this. It's happening. This is why it's happening.
But to me, but here's the thing, man. The fact that if you can't argue these things, when you say that there are incentives,
Yeah.
I'm not going to even acknowledge any incentives that aren't explicit. I'm only going to acknowledge explicit incentives. And then if that's the case, then you're really actually supposed to pursue that. That's easy. I can say, this is bad for me. This is the thing that's supposed to happen to me when this situation happens. This is bad. This is in paper on a book. I can argue against that. But if I'm going to have to argue against, hey, people feel some kind of way, sometimes, some ways, some places, some things, and we're going to call that a system, that's no different to me than people getting upset about capitalism. Like, then, oh, it's a system of oppression. That claim now has credibility if I'm gonna look at systems like that. I mean,
Yeah, when you get to the feelings, that's that you've gotten distracted. You're in the weeds again. When we talk about the system, we talk about an actual outcome and a literal amount of incentives or inputs that are happening. And so, like, when we're like, hey, we have an oppressive system, I'm like, what do you mean we have a system of oppression? I'm like, oh, we have people with a lot of money who made these private prisons, then they bought the police force, and then they actually like hire these people to like go out and like target folk who can't fight back. And then like they stick them in the prison and they stick them in their workforce and they make money off of them because of slavery. It's like, oh yeah, that's a system. I can see that. It's like, well, that's not a secret and that's not stated. It's not written down. It just is what's happening. It is reality. It is. If someone would like to write it down, you can and call it out. Like, oh, look at that. This is how they did the whole new Jim Crow and the actual Jim Crow. And also now, this is just our system of slavery. Like, oh, that's unfortunate and I don't like it. Why would we be treated special? I'm like, because this is the special case where they're targeting people in a biased way. This isn't happening to Asians. It's not happening to Hispanics. It's not happening to random people on the street. It's happening to these people, the poor people right here.
but then what is the case though? Like, what is the argument? I don't understand. Because to me, you got to speak to what's happening. Like, if I was to go out and round up a bunch of people and be like, hey, putting these people in jail. And then you're like, hey, you're putting a bunch of people in jail from the same area. And then I say, hey, they all kill people. We have footage of it. And then are you still going to keep the argument of, hey, you rounded up? Because people do this. People say there are a lot of people in jail that look like this. And then my thing is, what happened? What evidence do you have of what happened? I'm not concerned about what they look like. I'm not concerned about what your intent was. All I'm concerned about is the facts of the matter. Because if the problem is that people are being rounded up for crimes, I'm not on board with that.
Well, what crimes are, and that's you have to actually define what actually happened. And there are many people, some would say too many people, who are rounded up for being associated with crime, meaning like they live in the same area, but actually have no evidence of crime that happened at all.
This could go back and forth because here's the thing for me. You got to get better at arguing your, not you, I'm talking about people.
Yes.
At the end of the day, you're going to have to get better at arguing your point. You can't say there's this nefarious thing out here that happens that I can't address. That's not acceptable to me, right? You got to find something or a way to address it from a legal standpoint. If something like that is happening, you've got to bring up a case, bring the evidence, and argue it in the proper channels. Because what happens is if you're not arguing in the proper channels, if you're not presenting evidence that can be researched or founded or evidence in those proper channels, then you just sound like a person who's mad about something that happened to you. And regardless if it did happen to you or not, that is the system. The system is not here to make you feel heard. It's about, hey, I can argue my case, and based on the facts of the case, then you can make a determination. But I don't think people want to go that route because they don't even have a
Full
confidence
skill set.
in that type of route.
You'd have to learn to be a lawyer. So yeah, most people aren't going that route because that requires a level of skill set just with the English language, with actual formation of thought, with actual arguments and debate in general that most people don't have. But regardless, you're right. It would be helpful to have that level of clarity when you're making your case so that you can have a real discussion of saying, like, this is a real problem. This is what I've tried to do. This is what I'm doing anyway. This is what is happening regardless of the things because of limits. I'm not able to change the world. I'm able to make choices. I'm going to make my choices. And that's all I can put out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fair. I guess I don't think it's fair for anyone to require, or you can expect, but people are going to make judgment cases. That's why I brought up the scenario with the two basketball players,
Right.
because I've got to make judgments, man. I'm not going to be able to be there for every situation, so I can say for myself, no, that's exactly what happened. I saw it. It happened like this. That happened like that. I've seen too many situations where somebody's like, "Oh man, that person hit me," and nobody hit you. You know, "Oh, that person was rough with me and they broke my arm," and nobody did this. Nobody did this. I've seen it.
I hear
You know,
lying exists. Yes, deception is real. I'm not arguing that point. I think when you have those claims, it's helpful to have some way to verify those claims. I think there are bigger issues, meaning ones that affect large groups of people. And when a representative gets up and says, "Hey, this large group of people did not get the thing that we said we wanted and voted for and asked for or looked for or worked for," it's like we should be able to at least appreciate where they're coming from to say, like, what evidence is there for this? This is not a random claim you just throw out to the ether. This is a clear pointing out of injustice that you want rectified. And there's got to be a way to, I mean, like, there are clear ways to effectively have that conversation so that people know what to do and know where to go from there.
I do get it, man. It's just I'm like,
I mean, lying, we have to call out lying. We have to call out deception when people make claims that aren't verified, aren't justified. Yes, sure. But when people who are on the bottom, the powerless people, are have to be like, "Hey, the people in power did whatever they wanted, and I didn't get to do anything." It's like, I mean, yeah, that sounds exactly like how reality works. It's not right, but I hear what you're saying. Is there a specific thing that they took from you that we can like give back? Like, did they take your property or your life or your something? Like, what is it that we can address? Because you just saying injustice exists is probably true, but like, I don't know what we're gonna do about that.
to a certain extent, I don't see the value in acknowledging that in a sense. I- Maybe that's just me being too rational because I don't. things that I can't do anything about don't interest me,
Right.
right? And then to the point,
They are important to know. Like, hey, there's a giant hole over here. They burn them folk. I'm not going over there. I'm not doing that.
when I'm saying that, I'm saying it from the standpoint of there is a recourse in that. Let me give it a more common example, something that we talk about. When people talk about systems of oppression and capitalism, it's a crazy conversation to me
Yes.
because it abnegates choice. There is no choice for some people, for the whole idea that capitalism is in itself a system of oppression. There's 2 points I want to take, Ty, but I don't want to go too far. There are a lot of people who don't understand that they need to make choices. And that's kind of what I'm speaking about. If there are any people who are experiencing these circumstances, sometimes they need a liaison. They need somebody to speak on their behalf, someone who understands. This is what whole pro bono cases are for.
Right.
All of these intellectuals that end up being grifters to me in a lot of places because they find that the phony case and end up trying to prosecute somebody based on a phony case, but apparently there's all these real cases, and I know that they are, but I'm just saying, like, from what you're saying is happening all the time. Where all these people who perform pro bono law work, for all of these people who have so much compassion and want to be so popular in showing all this compassion, that's where you need to show the compassion. So be compassionate and don't take money for this case that you think is important.
There you go.
And the other part of it to me is, and this is, once again, I don't want to introduce something that seems like it's not related, but it's related in my mind. It's the whole idea of the other. We just got off the call talking with a guy, and people reject the idea of the other when I think it just needs more nuance. That conversation needs more nuance because guess what? The child molester is the other to me. The murderer is the other to me. And so I don't have an issue with the other. The issue I have is what mechanism do we use to determine the other? And the reason why I'm saying that is just that when I say what mechanism, if the mechanism is flawed, then the other, or let's not say it like that. If the mechanism is flawed, then wherever that line should be drawn is gray,
Right.
where it shouldn't be gray.
Shouldn't be gray. That's key. I think that's the thing. I have a problem with saying I have a problem when people make the separation where there shouldn't be a separation when they're like, this person did a thing that I hate, and therefore they are no longer people. I'm like, I think we need to take a step back. I think we need to go ahead and say, we hate this action, and this action is wrong or not. What? Let's have a real standard that we write down and say we don't support this action. And if people do this action, like we murder or we steal or we do the other terrible, crimes against people's bodies and stuff with the, everything else. All those things are actionable offenses where we then say that is now causing hurt to other people and it is causing the kind of scenario and environment we don't want to have. And now we have to have the law to actively use force to keep that action from happening again. There are ways to rehabilitate people. There are safeguards we can put in place. There are jails to put them in place. There are other ways to separate these people who do these actions from the general population. And there are ways to make people have a higher level of trust where they don't do these actions again. But that's not neither here nor there. Point I'm trying to get to is that when they do these actions, we need to have that standard and we need to hold that standard by holding people accountable. And I think that part is key. And I think we could do that without saying these actions make the people who do these actions not people. I have a concern sometimes when we get too excited about that. Like we need to rein it in and see if we can't find a path forward. Because sometimes there are other ways to deal with people who do actions we don't like or don't actually help society and actually do harm people.
I think I understand what you're saying. My question would be to you is that, do you think somebody like you and I would take that position as thinking, maybe trying to think about these things in this way? Would we take the position that that other person is no longer human?
conclusion.
Or do you think that it can't be determined?
I mean, I don't think you and I don't think any analyst or anyone who decides to look into the issue would ever get to that point of this person is the other. I think it is a broad general category where mob rule gets real excited real quickly. It says, I don't like how this person made me feel or how this action made me feel or how this outcome made me feel. And now I'm going to remove this person so that I don't have this feeling anymore.
I mean, and I was asking that question to get to something specific because my thing is that I understand other. I'm not opposed to the concept of good and other or good and bad. I would still understand the person as a person, and I think
You would.
in the sense that I think somehow it's related to education or something that somebody would may think of it in that way. I may be wrong, but that's my guess. They say, "Oh, that's still a person, even though they did bad things." Blah. But also, on the other hand, I'm thinking, I don't think that you can convince a world of that. I don't think that you can convince a world that, and I don't want to keep skipping ideas, but I think, to be real specific, it is very important that people who prescribe ideas for society, intellectuals, public intellectuals, whatever, when they come up with their ideas are fairly close to the basic idea of people, or or else people will just throw those ideas away
Yes.
because they think that they're useless.
And they can't follow them. I mean, you can't have someone who acts a certain way all the time and then come up to them and say, I want you to behave as if you've never behaved like this before because I think it's better. And I might be right, but I'm also expecting you to become a new person today. And that's probably not going to happen. I don't have any evidence for that. Nope.
Right. And the reason why I say that is that, yeah, that person is still a person. They did some bad things. But I'm not going to demonize people for just saying, like, people use the word evil. And I don't think there is evil really. I think that there's just actions. Because evil is a status in a sense, or a state of being.
I hear you. Yeah, people make it a category that is a forever state. And I'm like, that's not how that works.
Yeah. Like, why would we send people to jail and let them come home if people are just evil?
Right.
Like, why don't you just end it right there? You know, it's just
Exactly. Exactly. I think think it's helpful to have that category to say like there are things that are long term beneficial and I call those good. Things that are long term detrimental. I call those bad or evil. That's not okay.
and sometimes it's just the action though. That's the thing.
Just action.
So when you have like kids that commit a crime at 15, 14, and it's like it just was a stupid thing.
Right.
Something like that, or even an adult, it happens. But I guess I don't want to get too far away from the point. The point of it is just that I would not come to people and say, you shouldn't think of the other as something, or someone different. I wouldn't do that. Now, maybe I might be wrong. Maybe I can be convinced of something else.
I, that that you're correct in the sense that there is no reason to go to people who cannot think that way and tell them you should stop thinking this way. You're thinking wrong. You're dumb. I'm like, but that's not making them smarter. You understand? No amount of insults are going to make them more intelligent. No amount of yelling at them is going to solve them. They have to grow. There are actual stages of development that they have not reached yet, and so finding ways to help with that is their job. But something you could facilitate if you want. But yes, I don't think you should go to someone who thinks of someone in black and white and A and B and just like this is if they are already intellectually splitting. You cannot go to them and say, like, you should start taking in nuance. You need to be better at this. They're not. They're not going to be better at this. That's not how it works. Growth happens slowly.
But to me, this is the failure of intellectuals, because I'm not saying that you should change your intellectual taste for people.
Just meet
I'm
them where they
saying the way that you communicate ideas is either helpful or not. Because
Yes.
at the core, I don't want a rogue murderer in my neighborhood. That person is the other. They may still be a human, but I don't want to introduce ideas in my mind that make me slow when I need to be fast dealing with someone that may not have the considerations that I'm having.
Right.
That's the stuff that to me intellectuals they fail at. Look, if I'm talking about a dog, a wild rabid dog, I'm a human. I'm already not as good an animal as a dog, right? I gotta use my brain. So you asking me to stop and think and go through this, that, and the other. Is the dog gonna bite me? Is he calm? Look, man, I don't have all the time to process that. I'm not that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
You need to introduce an idea that helps me do something practical. That's the point.
And that's a real point, because that's true. That's how life has to work. You have to focus on bare minimums first, actually create safety, so you can actually have points of trust along the way to gather more evidence to figure out, all right, this theory is either going to hold water or it's not. And when it comes to intellectuals, they have all these different ideas. And as you progress and grow, you're like, all right, I have all these new thoughts now. I can now see things from different points of view, from different people's points of view, from different cultures' point of view. I can see things in a much more nuanced way now. That's great. I don't have to live just by whatever I was told, or traditions or rules. I can move up these levels and develop. But when I speak to other people, I'm coming down to wherever their level is. I'm not going to say, like, this is what I've learned. Do you guys want to hear about it? They don't. They don't want to. I want to go. I want to go to wherever they are. We're like, do you know these rules? Let's talk about it. You don't know these rules? Let's go down to where you are. Do you like when people do terrible things to you? I don't either. I'm gonna talk about a time when people did terrible things to me, and I stopped that. And I think that we got to focus on meeting people where they are, and then talking about the practicalities of the situation. You see a random wild dog running around, and you don't know this dog, you don't have any evidence, treat it as if it's a threat. We start there, and we secure our safety. After we have secured our safety, then we start investigating some more. Is this actually a threat? Is he rabid? Is he foaming at the mouth? Is he biting people? Or is it just happen to be here and wandering through the neighborhood? Does he have a collar? Does he not? We can gather evidence. We can see if our theory holds water, right? I mean, regardless, in the immediate, you act fast by securing your safety, yourself, and your stuff.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, you need that stored capacity. So everything you just said, and I don't know, I caught some clip. Somebody was expressing, I don't know who did it. They were expressing Aristotle's um understanding of philosophy or education, and they were saying like education is like leisure in some other language, right? And I found that to be interesting, just in and from the standpoint of, I think I spoke to you about this before, where thinking about things is a luxury.
Yes.
You have to have a certain security in your life to get to the point for it to not just be about survival all the time.
Yeah.
And when you build up that capacity, that intellectual capacity, you think you start to, the line starts to get blurred, especially if you're trying to present an idea for society, mass society. The line, that survival line, that place where the normal is, you might have lost track of that line. So essentially, you need people who have built up a capacity of thinking capacity to address the line where it is of survival. You can't. You might want to raise it to say, oh, you people, like you said, you people should be better. It's like survival is still survival. Like,
Have to have
we
that.
got these systems, but you can't make it be something that it's not. Like, some people are still struggling. So you've got to address that line. And to me, when you start trying to elevate too far and not understanding that, then it be like I said earlier, and at the risk of repeating myself, it becomes these ideas that are not practical, not realistic, and then you just be like, yo, these dumb intellectuals, what do they know about anything? They don't understand anything.
Yeah, they're so far ahead of things that they really don't go back to the beginning of saying, like, this is where people are. This is your audience. Your audience is dealing with these issues. And you are ignoring all these issues.
Right. And telling them to be better. Tell them.
Right. You should just know. Why don't you just know? What happened there? I know. Why aren't you moved?
Yeah, man. It's an interesting back and forth. I like McWhorter. I like Loury. I think that they make some. I mean, I didn't find issue with the thing that you found issue with, but I will say that there was a line that Loury said, and it was more of a just comply line. And I don't remember the exact line it was. It's like, or he was saying that basically Jeffries was advocating for kids that play college sports in the South to to forego their money or not play, boycott until the law is changed. And Lowry's like, man, why would you mess up your career and your money for this blah, 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 right?
Right.
And I'm thinking that's not the argument really, right? I mean, truly, because
That's one, not the main one. Like, you're right. There are some real. There's an underlying premise first that should be addressed.
yeah, because I understand that not everybody wants to get in the right and wrong game. And I'm not always going to fault people for it because I just think that that's the majority are just kind of like figuring it out as they go. But if you are saying that something is wrong, it's wrong. If I think it's wrong and I think something needs to be done, what the hell do I care about? I mean, I could care about the millions, but what's the saying? Like, what's the sense of getting all the gold if you have to sell your soul or something like that?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And but some people that doesn't register. So I just didn't understand his argument in the sense that, oh man, you are going to get a whole bunch of money. You shouldn't do something that's in line with your values. Instead of saying, I question why that's your value. That's to me is the art. And I think he did say that, but he pretty much dismissed the Jeffries position
Right.
as like, what is wrong with these people? He's like,
did.
they truly believe this thing.
He jumped over there, and I was just like, they are seeing a problem and they are trying to solve it. Now, we can argue that the method that they're going about trying to solve it is wrong. It's foolish, silly even, and that the words that they're saying don't have any purchase in reality. We can make that argument, sure. That'd be a fine argument to have. We're not getting there, but that would be that. I was waiting for them to start saying this thing, like, the things they're saying aren't in line with the principles of a good life, meaning an actual human being life where you take rational action. And I'm like, oh, well, we should mention that. Then that seems like a really important point to bring up. And anyway, I wish they had mentioned more of those things, because there are real things to talk about in a clear way to say, there are ways to move things forward for every human being. There are principles we all have to live by, and there are ways we can come together and do that in a much more intentional way than we are doing now, and then and than we have in the past. So I would love to see that happen, have a conversation more effectively. Period. And it's just hearing people talk about Muhammad Ali and standing up and fighting against stuff. I'm like, sports don't change the world in that direct sense. Like, I get it. People with influence can influence other people. All right, there. Cool. You know that if this random person has a scholarship to like the University of Georgia and just doesn't go or doesn't play, that doesn't really change the world. It's like, I get it that you want them to make a statement. This is just not saying what you think it is. Number one, University of Georgia doesn't vote. So it's not going to change like the whole issue with politics that you got going on. Number two, yeah, I don't think you understand how influence works. If the person is only going to have a platform if he plays, but he doesn't play, There's no, there is no fight. Like do you see how it would work if Muhammad Ali was like, "Hey, I'm gonna not fight." I'm like, you. Then he's not actually influencing the people you say you want to read. He still fought. That's anyway. I wish there was some more. Wish people had used their brains to get to the essence of the issue and just say, these are the principles we should live by. I want to see these principles lived out this way. And these people in Congress are doing things against those principles. Let's get them back online and say, hey, this is the life that we say we want. Now let's find a way to get there that we both can agree on.
Wow. That was like rapid fire at the end because it was like 3 things that popped up. So I don't think that what they're saying is let's use somebody who was going to enroll to get the platform to not enroll. They're too strategic to even believe that. They want somebody who's already there and who's already famous to stop going there so they can use the platform that's already been, established, their status. As far as the argument they had against Jeffries, McWhorter, and Loury, I think they had a similar position to my belief about it. I can't say that because I don't know the specifics of everything. And then the position is like, yo, there's going to be a grievance, and these people are going to misunderstand things, and they are going to go down the same path of thinking that they're in the 1960s civil rights movement over and over. If you don't break that cycle, it's going to keep happening. And because to me, I think people are just they're basically reliving a cycle that has been passed down in a lot of ways. And that sometimes muddies the picture for actual injustices, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. That's why I learned the story, The Boy Who Cries Wolf, because when something is actually happening, now I can no longer help you because you've blown your chances for me to pay attention to you by grifting, by saying everything is an injustice. Nothing is an injustice. You know what I'm saying?
Deluded.
And the last part of it was just, it doesn't even matter because I can't remember that one.
Thanks for clarifying the part about the people who are already established and that being the main one that they're talking about. And that's fair. I think there's something to be said for people who are already established to use their platforms wisely. And, I think they're
Because they're going to use them. Because they're object of use.
yeah, everything's transactional. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not all I'm saying is that is this what they should use their influence for? Is this going to drastically help move their lives in a better direction, or the lives of people they're around are in a better direction?
Don't care. It's not their lives. See, to me, that's the interesting part about it. It's not their lives to make the decision with. The collective position is it's us. You are a cog in our collective unit.
Yeah.
And you don't
Approaches it.
You don't get your own existence. You stand for us. And that's the whole collective mind, concrete material. If no one in the world is free, then if I'm not free, if everyone in the world isn't free, which is a ridiculous position.
Ridiculous. Yes.
But that's what happens when you don't even, and this is, to me, that's a different point than what we're arguing in my opinion. I'm expanding into, what I always talk about anyway, but that is related to that whole idea of not being able to identify individuals. That person doesn't have their own situation, that they don't have a right to their own situation. They need to do what we need them to do.
Right.
Just like Democrats and Republicans. They approach it from a collective standpoint. You vote with us.
With us. You're either with us or against us. That is the only categories we have. Pure tribalism.
Yeah. But here's the interesting thing, right? So we just came off the heels of black and white thinking and, the other. And I just basically introduced the whole other idea. So how do you get people to understand that when we talking about choices, like that's something to me. I'm going to review this and I'm going to get deeper into that because I don't if Republicans look at the Democrats as others and Democrats look at Republicans as others
Maybe.
without having any nuance, that's a problem for the government,
Right.
right? But at the same time, if the idea of the other is valid at some level, then that means that there's some threshold that must be examined to say, when do we get from basically it's like threat. When do we get from real threat to what is the denominator? What is the thing that splits this out that says, hey, you can look at the other like this because it's real threat. But once it gets to this level, whatever that mechanism may be, that's just people making decisions
Right.
and that's not threat anymore.
Right. There definitely is a actual amount of harm that has to happen for there to be a transition from a real threat to or rather perceived threat to a real threat. I think there's a lot of confusion right now and a lot of gray area where everything that is felt is thought as like, oh, this is perceived, and therefore it's I'm experiencing it as real, and I'm associating it as real, and therefore it is real. I'm like, hmm, it feels real to you. Now we're going to need to evaluate it in reality. When we say reality, we don't mean your subjective thoughts about reality. We're like, can I test this in a lab? Is this happening to more than you? How do we know? Do we have actual times where we can record this and like see it happen to other people that aren't you? Can this be recreated? Meaning, can we validate that this fact has happened more than once? Anyway, I think there are some things that have to be clarified in a way to say like certain things are actually harmful, and we have demonstrated that this leads to a long-term detriment, and even sometimes short-term, and for multiple people. And then there are other things that are just much more nuanced into saying like either this is so long term that it may not happen in our lifetime, or this is so perceived that we have to say like this is a bias. You have a preference about this. You're going to make some choices about it. It's going to be a thing, but it's not going to drastically take you off your like life course. And so we have to be real clear when we have Democrats and Republicans, and they're like, well, these leftists and these conservatives are fighting against each other, and therefore we're going to have to kill them all. It's like, well, I don't think that's the answer. I hear you. There are some conflicts that are happening, and these conflicts make people feel bad, and that's perceived. I hear you. I hear you. But no one's shooting at each other. So there's not an actual threat. So we're gonna still let them just talk it out with their words. That's fine. They can have conflicts there and use your words. That's literally what we hired them to, right? We hired them to represent us with the words so that they could like voice our own interests. Now, not voicing our own interests, that's a separate thing. I think we should talk about that too. But
Well, I mean, I don't, yeah, there's no incentive for them to do that with the way the things are. Like, we just need help. We need help from smart people. That's my perspective on it because there are a lot of things that are more complicated than surface level. Like, even the whole whole idea of businesses, things have incentive, and people aren't concerned about anything outside of that incentive, that loop, whatever.
yes, 100%. That is the system. You set it up, and the system will, as long as the incentives are aligned, you will get that outcome.
Yeah, man. And I think we might talk about that next week with David because I think he's deep into that. Cool, man. I don't have anything unless you got anything else.
That's enough. I think we're pretty good right now. I enjoyed the conversation tonight. I know we got some good stuff coming next week, so looking forward to it.